bring the kids and we'll fill up the choir loft with family so they can't keep shoving attendees upstairs. So she taught them. So Gladys was probably 7 or 8, something like that. And there were a couple other families. Oh, heck. The ones that you found at the mom's grave. Carol and Bill Jellix.
The Jellix, yeah.
So she brought their kids, and I forget who else there was, and she taught them some of the kid-type Christmas carols to make it legitimate and everything, you know. But before everybody got in the car, and I mean, it might not have been the same year, but our living room was kind of like your living room, that you really didn't have to go in it. And so as we were getting ready for her to go to church, I kept saying, just stay out of the living room, don't make any messes in there. And somehow I got the Christmas presents down to the living room behind the couch. And we all got in the car, and then I very conveniently forgot something and went back in, and I just gave a big push on everything, and it came flying out on the living room floor. And got home that night, and the kids weren't anticipating anything. And even Susie and Cindy were beginning to believe in Santa Claus after that. But they had all their presents out. So those were kind of in about the same year.
As long as we started staying awake all night through midnight mass, then Christmas would happen when we got home.
Yeah, it used to be the tradition that you went to 2 or 3 masses on Christmas Day. So we bribed them and said, if you stay awake, you don't have to go back again.
What about you, Grandma? What was Christmas like when you were a kid?
My earliest one would be the one where Santa Claus came on the milk truck. And let me get my mouth empty first. I would have been 4, maybe 5. And Walter, a couple of years older. And they didn't have midnight mass at our parish, I presume, because everybody was at church. And but Jane was home. She was 7 years older, 9 years older, 7 years older than me. And so anyway, we were allowed to sit on the stair steps. We had this big stairway. And that house had, I don't know how high your ceilings are, but they were 12-foot ceilings in that house.
Mine, I think, are 10.5 or 11 feet. They're not quite 12.
So Walter and I were waiting, and Jane had told us to sit on the top step, but we kept scooting down a step, you know. And so it was getting daylight, and at the bottom of the stairs, because it was a closed stairway, there was a window. And we kept watching for Mom and Dad and everybody, and then we saw the milk truck. And about the same time, Mom and Dad came in. And so they took us first to the bay window, which was just on the other side of the doorway. And Santa was walking down the sidewalk of the apartment building across the street, and nobody was answering their doors. So Mom said, knock on the window. And Daddy said, and calling me in. So he finally got to where he could hear us knocking on the window, and he came in. And so he took Walt and me by the hand, and that living room actually was what they called a parlor, because it had doors and it could be completely closed off. And as they opened the door, and the two of us, in his hand, and Mother always said that he just kind of gasped and said, "My helpers did a beautiful job." And of course, all I remember is hanging on to Santa Claus's hand. And so it was a memory that the whole family apparently hung on to for years. And I don't know how long he stayed or anything like that. I just remember him taking us in to see that tree. In later years, Aunt Garnet told me that they didn't always have a tree. That only started a year or so before I was born, I guess. I don't know if it had to do with money or if it was tradition or what.
Well, Grandma, I'm going to ask you to date yourself. What year would it have been when you were 5 years old? Would it have been?
Say that again.
What year would it have been when you were 5 years old?
1935.
1935. Wow.
Would have been 85 years ago.
Yeah.
I only did the math because I counted back from, no, it'd be
86 years.
87.
Coming up.
Because I'm 91.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's 5 from 11. 86.
86.
A long time ago.
Mhm.
And it was depression, middle of depression. And by what I know of the depression was that it apparently was on as the depression was letting up, because probably in years before that they couldn't afford
Having a tree.
to have it. And the nativity set that Cindy has is the same nativity set that was there that day.
Yeah.
And your mom just got,
I just
the
got the
baby
baby
of one
Jesus.
that got added to it, because the baby in the first nativity set was kind of a it wasn't the sweetest.
Are you saying that the baby was ugly? Is that what you're saying, Grandma?
Was the sweetest looking crib. And that so that, yeah, that would have been, it was 34, 35, had to be something like that, because other than that they'd have taken us to church, because the way back, so that's really my first memory of Christmas too. I don't remember presents, except that might have been the year I got a kitty car, which was the equivalent of the little white car or scooter that you couldn't throw in the trash because it didn't have any pedals.
Yeah. The one on the right-hand side is the original baby.
Ugh. Yeah, I see.
And I just got the
Yeah,
cute baby.
it looks half grown in this one. And so,
He looks demonic.
but Mother always built a whole scene in it. She took up about a quarter of the room. Some of those ornaments, those little cabins and stuff that were under our tree, and Kathy has them now. And she would just build this little village, and sometimes if we were given something, it would disappear, and then the next thing come Christmas, and there would be that little thing that disappeared, like those little racers. I don't know if Adric has them. They're a little red racer.
No, you still have them someplace here. You haven't given them up yet. Those cars, the metal cars.
Yeah, well, there was two kinds. Some were the toys in the Cracker Jacks boxes.
When
And
Cracker
then the
Jacks
other
used to
ones
give
were
toys.
the other ones were about this long, and they were little racers that Mother brought from her visit to the World's Fair in Chicago at some point in time. And so they were souvenirs for us that eventually went under the tree. but but yeah, she would just build this little town, and then there would be the place for the nativity. And we tried to keep that up too. And some of the family built much more elaborate.
Yes.
Uncle Tom took a clock. He was the one who was the jeweler, the watch repairman.
And the safe cracker professional for banks.
And the clock, what, the second hands? Or be that
However,
anyway.
he used the mechanisms and
Hooked them up, had this motor and these little wires and things. And they made little dolls that were skaters.
Oh.
And he had the mirror and put that fake snow, not the kind now, they were kind of like almost looked like a sequin. That they were shiny and glittery. And I don't know if you can even buy that kind anymore or not. But so he would have some in pairs and they would run around and stuff. And eventually Uncle Jim made one. Aunt Garnet and Uncle Jim.
Garnet
Be
used
Uncle
to-
Shifty.
no, Uncle Jim, Aunt Garnet's.
Okay.
And you
may have seen, but you may not remember. Aunt Garnet used to have the skaters under her Christmas tree.
My earliest Christmas memory is I was 5 years old, and it's when I got Eddie.
Oh yeah.
Dad put either you or Dad put him in my arms while I was sleeping because you let me sleep in the living room by the Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Santa Claus?
No, I slept through that.
Yeah.
I do have one memory of when we went to Sue Min's for one of her Christmas parties.
Yeah.
And Kevin, like Mary Alice and
Yes.
Kevin was Santa Claus, and he picked me up and he was like, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Have you been a good little girl? And I'm like, Kevin, I know it's you. I remember that. And I got a Polly Pocket for Christmas that year from Sue Min's.
And then, yeah.
That's well, and they wouldn't have been old enough to go down to Annette's, I think.
Mm-mm.
Annette's the other store that was comparable
Or-
to Friedlander's.
Everything Rubbermaid is.
Okay, yeah.
Or
Was.
And I think the building's still there, but
Yeah.
it's behind Mato's, isn't it? Where that
Oh,
the toy
the-
department was.
yeah, the toy.
But
department,
anyway,
yeah.
One of our family friends, and this was when I was older, an adult, and my kids were grown up. But his name, they're the ones that had the big decoration out on Milltown Road that always had their house. all
Yeah,
fixed up.
yeah.
The Coca-Cola.
So he was Santa Claus down there. And so Dad and I, Grandpa and I were down trying to finish up or do some shopping for last minute stuff or just in there anyway. And Santa Claus kept following me and he kept talking to me. And Grandpa is just having a ball. And they're talking and he's asking me about this kid and that kid by name. And I did not recognize him. I knew his voice, but I did not. And that went on for a couple years before I ever learned that he was alcoholic. But I always believed in Santa Claus. Still do.
When I learned out that Santa Claus wasn't, and I'm putting air quotes up here, real, I remember Santa Claus's agents, my parents, explaining to me that while maybe Santa Claus didn't come down the chimney, Santa Claus is the act. Santa Claus is just love, is what it is. And I was very upset about it. So I believe Elvis has a song about a blue Christmas. Was there ever a Christmas that was really hard to get through?
Couple of them.
they're